Hello and welcome back. Sean here, Mountains Garage. Do you remember that time in the spring of 2025 when it stopped raining? Neither do I. This afternoon, on this beautiful Saturday afternoon, it's beautiful because we're here, right? We're going to strip this clutch Turbo 400. I put it in a holster, flipped it up so it would drain. There's a drain bucket on the floor. And the only thing that came out of it was dust. I don't believe it's ever had oil in it. Hopefully it's just been overhauled and it's in perfect shape inside, or it's a complete bucket of rust. The input shaft is rusty, but I can see through the hole in the throw bearing retainer that it's not rusty inside. So after the last video, again, the biggest following or biggest views I've ever had on one video on this transmission, so thanks for that. Along with that comes lots of critics, or maybe just people aren't really eloquent in the way they speak. One guy was chastising me for not explaining how the throw bearing would work. Well, it sits over the bearing retainer and there's a fork that comes in through the bell housing and operates it just like a manual transmission. So it all operates in the space provided, doesn't hit the pump drive. Now you know. So I'm going to put my safety glasses on, a pair of gloves, and let's just rip into it. In this video, we're just going to strip it in pieces. And in subsequent videos, when I work on the individual pieces, we'll see how they did certain things, because I have to assume this is old technology inside. Let's find out. I'll be in and out of the picture. Don't worry about me. This is the focus today. I'm going to start by taking the pan off because I need some place to put all the nuts and bolts. Using the trusty old M18 Milwaukee. A little nervous about what we're going to find. I do find it interesting. It has a top hat style dipstick O-ring. Those weren't around until the 80s, so it's been a part, you know, in recent memory. The fact the bolts are coming out of it is a good thing. It has two header bolts over here with a linkage would bolt on for the bracket for the shifter. I understand this process is noisy and sometimes I'm facing away talking, so hopefully the volume works out. First surprise, what's in here? All right, well, we're off to a good start. A little bit of paint and etc. But it's not as nasty as the last one I just stripped. So, that's good. Let's see what they use for a filter. The spacer is interesting. Does not look like, you know, it looks homemade for the filter. Doesn't look long enough. The filter was on an odd angle. And this dipstick tube is for a shallow pan. Well, that's a shallow pan, I guess. Kind of halfway in between. And this is a Dacron style filter. In a high performance transmission, you should have the screen type. You shouldn't see that yellow stuff right there, but it looks to be never used. I'm going to concentrate getting the pump drive off first, and then we'll work on what's pretty much a normal Turbo 400. The big change is this stuff here, so let's just go ahead, take the snap ring off that holds the drive on. Comes right off, that's cool. That comes off. It went toward the throw bearing retainer. In the previous video, when I talked about the bearing retainer itself, there's a GM part number on it. I looked it up. 57 or 8 and up, 3-speed Saginaw. Those weren't overly tight, so that's okay. Had a gasket ended over. Okay, that's a snap ring. That's not doing anything. It's all grease. It's never been run. That's all covered in assembly lube. Curious why the snap ring, which should be for the bearing, I assume, is doing nothing. That has a brand new gasket and grease on it. Now, I'm going to take the pump bolts out and see if this whole adapter comes off. I had previously looked, and if I can find it, stand by. Here it is. I had to find a thin wall socket. It's only a 12 point, but they didn't allow a lot of clearance around the bolt head. I mean, a regular 6-point snap-on socket will not fit. But this should do it. Let's give ourselves a little extension. Hopefully they come out. They used all 8 bolts. No problem there. No idea how they sealed this up. Or I'm going to seal it up. But we'll figure it out. Well, it went from a solid noise to a kind of a dull thud. Things are moving. Well, that was easy. So I have a question about the snap ring on that bearing, but this all looks nice. Nothing between here and the pump like you normally do on an aftermarket bell housing, nor are these bolts sealed. Seems like that would leak like a sieve. No sealer. No, they do have a washer on it, but they have like a stock TH400 pump bolt washer, but they used a bolt with a washer on it, so I don't know how that actually seals a thing. But hey, somebody thought it was going to be okay. But that's the whole drive. It's aluminum. I got to figure out the bearing. The bearing's made in America. That's good. This piece probably just fits in the pump. Yep. Got some rust holding it up. So I may have to take that out. Interesting. There we go. So that has a bearing in it as well. Obviously this is a pump drive. They had to machine the stator tube off the back of the pump. So that'll be interesting. That's, you know, kind of one off. I can no longer grab the stator tube to remove the pump, but I should be able to pop it out just by going behind it. It wants to lift on one side, but if you kind of go like this, she might go. I'm just cocking it. So therefore, more tools required. Stand by. The old snap-on pump puller threads into the pump bolt hole, right under the pressure regulator, and we're out. Ow. Okay, that worked pretty well. Obviously the input shaft into the forward clutch is also custom. That's all pretty normal stuff. So far, so good. Forward clutch. Let's just pop it open, do the kicks. I don't even know if you can see me, but let's just do it anyway. Yep. All brand new, part number still on them. So that's neat, we'll get into that later. See how they did each individual piece. Put my own spin on it. Put that back together for now. My hands are slippery already. My favorite tool to get the direct clutch out is just this big hooked awl. What do you want to call it? It has a front band. I find that interesting. Typically that would be long gone. Hopefully it's not squeaking. Hopefully it has a 34 element sprag. It's got aluminum piston. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 clutch. Yep, 6 clutches. Just check the sprag. Hope you can see me. We're just winging it here. Yeah, it's got a nice 34 element sprag. So that has value in itself. Put that all back together for now. So nothing gets lost. At this point I'm just talking while I'm working. So I do find it interesting there's a front band, which is brand new, Ray Bestis 480E Turbo 400. So this was assembled at least since the early 90s when the 480E came out. So that's another clue. They did not use any kind of case saver or heavy duty snap ring on the intermediate. Just a stock one, which is not rugged. We won't leave it like that. So the intermediate clutches, once again, brand new and dry. 3 clutch. Alto USA. Kind of hoping there'd be a date on there. High performance, it says so. High performance. And now, just looking at the pump opening, like I mentioned, these 3 standoffs, which I remove for an aftermarket bell housing, you have to. I go from the pump opening out. I can do that and cosmetically trim that up. It's not broken like I thought it was, other than where it was dropped in 2 places. So I think I can save the case itself. Trying to see if they even dual fed it. They didn't. Interesting. So let's pop the valve body off. Okay, we got some kind of adapter on. Remember I told you the the filter tube was a little odd? Well, so is the adapter stuck in the case for the tube to sit in, extending it down about halfway between a shallow and a deep. Interesting. Very interesting. So, when I take a valve body off, it has the governor tubes. I got to see if it has a governor in it. That'd be extra strange. I can see The override for 1.2, the modification we do on valve bodies so it doesn't automatically shift from 1 to 2 at 4,500 or 5,000 like all turbo 400s do stock. That's been modified, but I noticed the governor cover, when there's no governor in the transmission, I usually flip it upside down. This one, the governor cover was on the normal direction. Let's just see what's in there with a 1/2 inch. I was just about to pull the valve body off and explain why I had the 7/16, but I don't see one in there. Or do I? Yes, I do. I can't imagine having a clutch turbo with a completely stock internals. That is somewhat bizarre. But it has a governor, and I never expected in a million years. See if it's hung. Still works. To test the governor, you can see the internal valve move a little bit that way. When you squeeze these weights on the bottom, it should drop a second time. So, in case you were wondering. So that's why it has governor tubes that are in perfect shape, by the way. Everything is literally brand new. You know, man, nothing here is brand new, but everything is nice and clean, like it's brand new. So I like to take the 3/4 inch bolts off first, so the spring pressure here doesn't want to bend them or break them. Not that it would ever happen, but an old guy told me that. You got to listen to old guys. You have to. Let me wipe this off so you're not looking at dirt and paint on my hands. If you happen to notice, when I take bolts out, I always go in a crisscross or front to back or some kind of pattern that at the time makes sense in my head. I know there's a spring right here, so this one's going to make it pop up, which it did. Now you got to pry out the governor tubes out of the case. They stick into the case like that. This has no kickdown solenoid, no bolts for the kickdown solenoid, no wire for the kickdown solenoid. The springs out of the accumulator. So some modifications were done. These pull right out. However, this is all still covered in assembly grease. That's the early style band apply piston. No, it's not. That's a mistake. It has the wrong band apply with the piston. That should be smooth. This one here. If this has a ridge in it, that should be smooth. That's wrong. Oh well. Gaskets are all like new. We have 2 check balls. The 2 that I normally put in when I'm hot rodding a Turbo 400. You got one in the front and one in the bathtub. So even though they didn't remove, I guess you don't have to all the time, remove the second ring off the center support, it looks like. They did put a cup plug in the feed hole right here to the right of the center support bolt, which would be a dual feed mod. So let's go ahead and take out the center support bolt. Wrong socket. It's kind of fun doing it live. You can watch me make mistakes and whatnot. That was nice and tight compared to the last one I just did that was loose for the reasons if you watched the last video, and it ruined the transmission. And while we're right here, let's remove the servo for the rear band. Same thing here. I know it's going to pop up kind of quickly. Well, it didn't really pop up, did it? These usually behave pretty well, but on more than one occasion I've taken this off and that was still glued down in its bore full of oil, and then it popped up like that. It's kind of refreshing to not have all the typical clutch material and everything in here. All I have is assembly lube, which I don't know how many years this assembly lube's been here, but it's still somewhat pliable. The last one I took apart, the transmission was built with brownish assembly lube, and man, it was hard as a rock. So this is better than that. Park and Paul bracket guide, I guess. That right there. Let's see if the tail housing will come off, the bolts, without hurting anything. Yep. I don't believe there's any speedometer gear stuff in there, but when I go to pull the lower unit out, I don't want anything holding me up. Those came out without no drama. Also interesting, the O-ring is still on the output shaft, which would prevent putting on even a normal yoke. I always at least remove the O-ring and run a counterboard yoke, or I remove the O-ring groove. So, also, the rust did not come in very deep, if you can see that. So now we get the center support bolt out, the governor, the speedo, nothing is in our way to remove the lower unit. That is a master spline. Just seeing if they put new bushes in it, which they look pretty nice. You know it's old when the stator tube, the sun tube, has a space on either side. You actually have to line it up. So we'll just omit that. Still got to get the snap ring out. Depending on where they put the opening as to how difficult it's going to be. But she's going to come out. It's the snap rings and stuff are the reason why I have my safety glasses on, because I like my eyesight. There it is. That's the beveled snap ring that holds the center support in. I wish I had an overhead shot, but I'll have to rely on my poor commentary. So now, this is a lifter for the lower unit. Gluten free. Definitely did not remove the second ring back, but however they were guided in the modifications, somebody must have thought they did not have to. And with most valve body mods, that may still be true. You have to kind of figure out what they were thinking when they did it. It's not rollarized in the back, it's just got the traditional washer. It does have a fretting ring, so it's not that early a transmission. The center support sits on the case, has a nice band. I can't tell if it's new or reman or just really good used. Again, I prefer the good used. So that's that. So mysteries I need to solve is how and why they plugged off the cooler, what it would take to get that functioning again, what modifications were done with the valve body. The valve body drives everything. If you strip a transmission, there'll be mods throughout the transmission, holes drilled, whatever, that originally probably came in the valve body instructions, because that's the brain. So that is what makes it all tick. But again, interesting, it had a front band, which isn't the end of the world. If you're driving a manual valve body Turbo 400, downshifting without the front band, they claim you should really get down to almost stopped before you start downshifting. At least use your head. You're not gonna, pull it down on the interstate to pass a car. At least you probably shouldn't. So I'm going to go over this with a fine-tooth comb. If it cleans up, I'm going to trim the bell housing a little more. And it's not going to take much to put it back together. Study the mods, decide what I want to do to it, and put it back together. And then I'm going to modify a bell housing to fit on. And it's been brought to my attention by more than one person that if I go through all this effort, then I got to put it in something and experience it. They claim the video series would not be complete, so that I'm going to need another project. You don't have to twist my arm. I don't see myself putting in any current projects, but we'll wait and see. So, let's see if I can say goodbye. So we script it. I got to go through all the individual parts, which probably in a whole other video. And reassembly. I'm going to show you everything because why not? It's unique. People like it. I like it. I wish it had a bigger input shaft, but I'm not sure what the weak point is. When you have a clutch, probably everything's a weak point. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you soon. And welcome if you're new here. Check out all the other 600 and some odd videos under the tab that says videos on my page, Mountains Garage. Take her easy. Bye-bye. What I meant was, bye-bye.